ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
Hello and thanks for staying with us on the network service of the NTA. This is Weekend File and we are live in Abuja. Nigeria is known to be endowed with rich natural resources including crude oil, which has been a major source of income to the nation since independence in 1960. Successive governments at one point or the other hinted at the desire to diversify the economy for the future. And with the sudden fall in the price and sale of oil in international markets amid COVID-19 pandemic, the move by the federal government to create and sustain other avenues for national wealth creation is yielding tremendous results. Today, Nigeria produces and exports high-quality rice, cassava, maize, and sorghum, to mention but a few. The same goes for the solid minerals and the extractive industry, which concerned authorities are working hard to explore for the benefit of the nation. Meanwhile, increased activities in the nation's maritime and inland waterways are equally complementing the federal government's economic expansion drive. There is more work to be done in that regard, though, as the federal government continues to look inwards. So, tonight on Weekend File, we shall dwell on Nigeria at 60, moving away from mono economy. Our guest is Dr. Emeka Okengu, a development economist, and there will be detailed reports from across the zones. I am Kenen Ima Abodike. The news now. Collation and counting of ballots are ongoing in the Ondo governorship election at various collation centers across the state. So let's join Ogochukwu now for some reports in our Akure studio.
Thank you, Ekene. Welcome to Akure. Eligible voters trooped to the 3,009 polling units across the 18 local government areas of Ondo State to cast their ballot for the emergence of the next governor of the Sunshine State. Reports from across the state indicate an impressive turnout and peaceful conduct of the election. Olubukola Aduo reports that the exercises are judged seamless.
Electorate in the three senatorial districts that constitute Ondo State, which include Ondo North, Central and South, cast their ballots for their preferred candidates. The candidates of the three major political parties, Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu of APC, Agbola Ajayi of ZLP, and Eyita Ojegede of PDP, commended the seamless process.
I've not been in any other place. I know that the shower we had has disrupted the plan. A few places there are waterlogged, but they have created area for us to maneuver. And I think we have voted in a peaceful manner.
We rely on the police. We're not given to violence. We're very peaceful people. We believe that if we set examples, people will learn from it.
If it is what I've seen here, it's okay. The turnout is impressive.
Alleged cases of violence and unruly behavior in some polling units were nipped in the bud by security agents.
In regards to the vote that capsized, I was taking some officials with the honest material. I'm happy to also tell you that all men that were there, they've been properly rescued. So,
persons with disabilities, especially visually impaired, were accorded special recognition through the provision of braille ballots and other facilities by INEC, which made voting easy for them.
They have done a good job for us. because they did not look down on us.
Final collation of votes is ongoing in Akure. Olubukola Aduwo, NTA News.
However, there was evidence of low compliance with NCDC protocols of no face mask, no voting during the Ondo state governorship election. Correspondent Olajide Bello reports that voters are anxiously awaiting the results.
Following the order of no mask, no vote by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for the Ondo governorship election to guard against incidences of total disregard to NCDC safety protocols recorded in Edo governorship election, electorates went to the polling units with their mask on, while others who did not comply with the directive were asked to do so.
Turnout is massive. Very, very impressive. I'm highly elated with our people. But one thing we are having a little problem that is occurring is the card reader. It is not fast. It is slow.
Without playing to the gallery, I think this is one of the best performance of INEC from all the elections that I've participated in. The INEC officials at the polling units are very calm and they are very conscientious, very meticulous.
However, electorates in some parts of the state, including the riverine communities, defied the downpour during the voting process to cast their ballots for candidate of their choice. Electorate, INEC officials, security personnel and other stakeholders are keeping vigil at the INEC Collation Center for the announcement of results. From Akure, Olajide Bello, NTA News.
All right, that's the situation at this point. We'll return to you for the rest of Weekend Fire.
Thank you, Ogochukwuka. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari is appealing to Nigerians from all walks of life to recommit themselves to the nation and subsume their personal and sectional interests to the overall national aspirations of unity, economic prosperity, and good governance. He said that obvious differences notwithstanding, everyone must strive to guard against actions and utterances capable of undermining the nation's democratic framework. The president was speaking in Kaduna at the combined passing out parade of the 67 regular corps and 46 Army Short Service Corps of the Nigerian Defense Academy. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo tells us more.
The challenges associated with the COVID-19 pandemic notwithstanding, the Nigerian Defense Academy remained unwavering in its commitment to the execution of its core mandate of training young Nigerians for the armed forces to effectively protect and defend the nation's territorial integrity. Consequently, 793 cadets for both regular and short service courses pass out of the military institution, having adjudged to be of good character, academically sound, unquestionably loyal, and most importantly, courageous in the face of danger. President Muhammadu Buhari, as a reviewing officer and indeed a retired general, described as encouraging the excellent work invested in the training of the officer cadets for service to the nation and humanity.
Let me now remind the passing out cadets of the need to be committed to the nation by taking your rightful place among your peers in the armed forces of our country. With the quality of training you have received, I am convinced that you will discharge your duties professionally and responsibly. I can say without ambiguity that the future holds promise for our national defense and security.
The president used the opportunity to commend the resilience and steadfastness of the armed forces personnel for their professionalism and bravery in tackling the menace of terrorism, insurgency, armed banditry, herders farmers conflict, kidnapping, piracy, and other acts of criminality in the country.
We remain committed to ending the security challenges bedeviling the country. The federal government will sustain the provision of adequate modern equipment, logistics, and infrastructure needed to support the operations of the armed forces. The loyalty and patriotism displayed by our service personnel must be sustained and strengthened. To my other compatriots, I want to use this forum to appeal to our sense of patriotism.
During the ceremony, the young graduating officers who distinguished themselves during the training session were given awards, with I.O. Salami and M.B. Abdullahi carting home the swords of honor as best all-round cadets for both regular and short service courses respectively.
I, Muhammad Buhari,
and the young officers were formally commissioned and decorated with their new ranks of second lieutenant for the Army, sub-lieutenant for the Navy, and pilot officers for the Air Force. President Muhammad Buhari also administered the oath of office on the newly commissioned officers. With its motto, loyalty and valor, the Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna, established in 1964, has so far graduated over 20,000 officers, including 478 from 9 sister African countries. From Kaduna, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
There have been protests over brutality by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian Police Force, which necessitated the need for additional reforms, as announced by the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu. These include the stoppage of patrol and stop and search by SARS and other special units of the police. Now, President Muhammad Buhari has again restated his administration's resolve to support and reform the police. The president, in his verified Twitter handle, said he is being briefed by the Inspector General of Police on the ongoing reform efforts to end police brutality and unethical conduct towards ensuring that the police are fully accountable to the citizens. The president instructed the IG of police to conclusively address the concerns of Nigerians regarding exercise and ensure erring personnel are brought to justice. President Buhari, however, appeals for calm and patience as Nigerians freely exercise their right to peacefully make their views known, adding that the vast majority of men and women of the Nigerian police force are patriotic and committed to protecting the lives and livelihoods of Nigerians. Now, security expert Kabiru Adamu joins me now to speak more on this matter. Welcome to Weekend File.
Thank you.
Well, the SARS protest is turning violent in some parts of the country and in some other places, even recording casualties. Is that the way to go about that?
Unfortunately, no. A protest is a change mechanism. Issues have been identified and citizens are bringing those issues to the fore. Unfortunately, over time, not just in Nigeria, we have seen instances where when protesters come out, then other forces join those protesters, and the consequence of that is sometimes a breakdown of law and order. A good example is the Black Lives Matter protest in the US. We saw how it was taken over by other forces, and of course it led to a political dispute between the two major political parties in the US. So it appears the same thing is happening here in Nigeria. Yes, there is, citizens, we have a right to protest, to air our views, but then unfortunately those kind of actions open avenues for other forces to take advantage of and achieve their aims. And I think that is unfortunately what we're finding ourselves with in Nigeria. The incident that happened in Delta State is regrettable. In Abuja today there was almost a similar incident, and I think in Osun State too there were incidences like that. Clear breakdown of law and order that are not acceptable in any democratic institution. The message is clear. There is a protest regarding extrajudicial application of force by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad unit. That message is clear. But the delivery of that message, I think, unfortunately, is where we have issues with those unlawful practices, either by the protesters or others who have taken advantage of the protest, is hugely condemnable.
All right. It appears President Buhari's directive to the IG is the much needed response by forwarding SARS campaigners at the moment, isn't that?
It is a step in the right direction. The president has spoken. He has reassured Nigerians, put his integrity actually in front, and assuring Nigerians that the reform process is backed by his government. So that's a good step. But beyond that, as a security specialist, I would like to see changes within the operational procedure of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad unit. We should, as Nigerians, be able to hold them to account. So I would expect, going forward, the Inspector General of Police to make public the special, the SOPs, special operational procedures of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad unit, so that as a Nigerian, I would know, once I encounter them, these are the steps they should take. And where there is a deviation from that step, I can call them to order. That, I think, is the missing gap. Monitoring and evaluation by perhaps a unit, either within the police or outside the police, to ensure that the type of, heavy-handedness and unlawful use of force is brought to the barest minimum, as it were. And then, more importantly, numbers have been provided to Nigerians where we can call wherever there are breaches to the use of the powers by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad unit. So those are all good steps. But beyond that, I think the Inspector General of Police should make public the standard operating procedures of this particular unit.
Would you subscribe to weeding out the bad elements if they are identified, weeding them out from the system?
And definitely, if it's identified, because that's one of the promises that President Buhari made, the prosecution of officers that are found guilty. So yes, whenever a public officer is given a weapon, that weapon can do one of two things. It can help protect your life and your property, or unfortunately it can be used to harm you. So where it is seen clearly that a public officer has used the weapon that he's been given to harm a Nigerian without due cause, because let's remember, any attempt to harm a Nigerian extrajudicially is condemnable across all lines. So anywhere that is proven, that officer is not, and I repeat, is not worthy of holding a weapon or being a public officer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, for coming on Weekend Farm.
Thank you for having me.
Still talking security matters, the Directorate of Defense Media Operations, DMO, says several armed bandits have been neutralized in airstrikes executed by the air component of Operation Hadarin Daji at a location west of Wagini in Katsina State. In a statement by DMO Coordinator Major General John Enenche, the air interdiction mission was conducted on 8 October 2020 after credible human intelligence reports and series of confirmatory surveillance missions had shown significant presence of the bandits along with hundreds of rustled cattle in the camp. Nigerian Air Force attack aircraft subsequently engaged the location in successive rounds, destroying portions of the camp and neutralizing some of the bandits. Meanwhile, the Nigerian military says it will sustain this offensive against all enemies of our nation. OPEC World Oil Outlook says renewable energy will continue to grow going forward, rising significantly faster than any other source of energy at an average of around 6.6% annually. OPEC Secretary General Mohammed Sanusi Barakindo says natural gas will be the fastest growing fossil fuel during the OPEC forecast period from 2020 to 2045. Here is Lydia Sampson with more.
The year 2020 has been a defining one for OPEC. For the first time, OPEC is releasing its flagship annual publication by video conference, a reflection of how dramatically COVID-19 has changed the world. The pandemic, in the words of OPEC Secretary General, has ushered in one of the greatest economic and humanitarian challenges of modern times. This is because lives have been upended, livelihoods disrupted, uncertainty abounds. It is therefore not surprising that for the first time, this year's publication extends the outlook to 2045. This provides an additional 5-year window to examine developments in energy and oil demand, oil supply and refining, the global economy, policy and technology developments, demographic trends, environmental issues, and sustainable development.
2020 began on a very positive note. We projected global economic growth of around 3% in this year compared to 2.9% for 2019. We expected the improving economy to lift global oil demand to 101 million barrels a day, a rise of about 1 million barrels a day from 2019. Then the world turned upside down.
OPEC and its member countries recognize the importance of renewable to broaden the energy mix and to address the global challenge of climate change, fully supportive of the Paris Agreement. OPEC member countries are embarking on their own ambitious plans to diversify their energy portfolios. Nonetheless, the petroleum sector is and will remain the sturdy foundation for meeting global energy needs, an assessment Barkindo says is widely shared by other leading agencies. The deep recession caused 20% of world oil demand to collapse in the second quarter of 2020, intensifying the market's volatility. Though bold and decisive action was taken to pull the industry back from the brink, it remains very clear that all forms of energy will be needed to support the post-pandemic recovery and address long-term energy needs. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to the energy future. He said the global oil market must also bear in mind that these efforts require time and patience, especially since recovery will always be slower than the shock. Barkindo reiterates there is no better time than now to work together to build a more secure, sustainable and resilient energy future. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
Away from the oil industry, the Indian High Commissioner to Nigeria, Abe Thakur, has acknowledged the strive by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in helping to keep the unity of Nigeria and showcasing the rich cultural heritage of the country to the outside world. He was speaking when he visited the Director General of NTA, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, where issues of cooperation between Nigeria and India featured prominently. Calvin Ehunaye reports.
Nigeria and India have several commonalities. Apart from being members of the Commonwealth of Nations, they established diplomatic relations in the early 60s. Since then, both countries have remained strong trading partners, as well as having cooperation in military training, education, technology and healthcare. How to keep that relationship going and expand in other areas is what the Indian High Commissioner to Nigeria, Abe Thakur, is excited about, describing the NTA as an important agency in achieving that goal, saying its efforts in helping to shape a positive image for the country in its news and programs are commendable.
Africa is a focus area for us, and within Africa, one of the best relationships that we have is with Nigeria. We've had high-level exchanges despite the COVID pandemic. Our foreign ministers have been speaking regularly. Our trade ministers are in contact. We've had a large number of business meetings between each other's countries.
Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, welcomed any cooperation that will further cement the long-standing relationship between both countries, particularly in cultural exchange programs and capacity building.
Agents of government, we are the number one public broadcaster, and it is our responsibility to foster relations between Nigeria and other friendly nations like India. So this visit to NTA by the High Commissioner is something that levels our heart.
The visit is part of the Indian High Commissioner's advocacy tour of key agencies strategic to oiling the relations between India and Nigeria. In Abuja, Kelvin Ehunaye, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has condoled with the family of Yaradua on the passing of Hajia Rabi, mother-in-law of his late friend and classmate, General Shehu Musa Yaradua, describing her demise as a sad loss. The president, who was in Kaduna on Saturday for the graduation ceremonies of the Nigerian Defense Academy NDA, took time away from official schedule to visit the Yaradua family house, where he was received by Hajia Binta Yaradua, the late general's widow and daughter of the deceased. President Buhari said the late Hajia Rabi lived a useful life worthy of emulation, leaving behind an indelible mark in the lives of many who came close to her. He prayed to Allah to accept her good deeds. Nigeria is endowed with natural resources, and oil has continued to play a big role in Nigeria's economy amidst calls for diversification. So our discussion tonight will center on Nigeria at 60, moving away from mono economy. We will be right back.
What's wrong with you? You just crashed my car with your pangolo. I said, who scratched who? You scratched me. I did not scratch you.
What's wrong with this old man with it? Crash. Uncle, please, I beg, give me your phone.
And I'm calling the agent of police. Who's the agent of police? The director of the DSS is my cousin's husband. The head of service is my sister's fiance.
Uncles, please, why the scratch is super dangerous? Go.
Now, that's it there.
Find your first with the best data plans in town. Dial *777#. Glow Unlimited.
Before, malaria they knock me basbos. And then one day I go pharmacy.
Have you tried Malact? Malact is the effective malaria medicine from May and Baker, makers of quality medicines for over 75 years. Malact contains a combination active drug called dihydroartemisinin piperacin, which keeps working in your body for up to 6 weeks, stopping the malaria parasite from knocking you down. This is why Malact is your control button against malaria.
Now 3 tablets I take every day for 3 days.
Now so Malact give malaria boy one time. Now I have malaria. I go punch my own back.
Malact, your control button against malaria. Available in pharmacies near you.
Me, I go live the best of my life. Me and my guys. I know they done myself, I'm the life of the party, so make you be my guest, oh. Why you the stress, why you the worry? I let go, yeah. You got everything you need.
You can choose to do this with your stew, but not your data. Get more out of life with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# today. Data is life.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome back. The federal government's formulation of exclusive policies for the advancement of all sectors of the economy is aimed at engendering sustainable economic growth through diversification. Abolade Salami reports on steps towards discouraging a mono economy induced by over-dependence on oil.
Successive governments since 1999 have initiated economic policies and strategies to free the economy from the burden of one major source of revenue generation. While some seem to have worked and impacted the economy partially, crude oil is still dominated. With the current state of affairs in the international markets, it is imperative that policies geared towards developing the non-oil sector are fully implemented. The Muhammadu Buhari administration on assumption of office saw the urgent need to drive an all-inclusive economy that would not solely rely on crude oil for sustainable development, which resulted in the introduction of various policies capable of promoting agriculture, mining, exploitation of solid minerals, boosting of MSMEs, overhauling of the maritime industry, and projection of tourism.
Flying more funds into economic growth is the only known stimulant to the economy, as it will prevent business collapse, increase pro-poor expenditure that ultimately will ensure liquidity. It will also retain and create jobs using labor-intensive methods in key areas like agriculture, and most importantly, it will support small businesses and create jobs in priority sectors.
Nigeria is working towards diversification. We have seen how bad it is to depend on what?
on on mono economy of oil. So everybody should go ahead. Government is trying, and we want investment and businessmen to also key into it.
The diversification drive has undoubtedly impacted positively on the nation's gross domestic products, with notable expansion evident in agriculture and telecommunications sectors. The federal government's relentless quest to develop the non-oil sector will also reposition the Nigerian maritime industry enough to attract foreign investment.
Looking at the fact that the oil industry might not be in the boom that it's expected to be, we feel that the maritime industry needs to take that on.
If we present the maritime industry, carry out reforms, the maritime industry will stand in a good stead, for the Nigeria's economy.
As most economies of the world adapt to the new normal and look inward for economic stability, the initiative adopted by government to develop 22 non-oil strategic products for exports and boost foreign exchange earnings, including the CBN Anchors Borrowers Program, as well as the provision of funds for the resuscitation of businesses, have been listed as platforms for economic stability. In Lagos, Abolade Salami, NTA News.
And from Kano, Muhammad Rabiu Ali reports that agriculture is becoming more attractive in Kano as the federal government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, provides incentives.
From time immemorial, farming has been the major occupation of people of Kano State, which served as their source of income. This prompted the administration of late Governor Audu Bako in 1967 to formulate agricultural policies which promote all year-round farming through provision of dams in some parts of the state. There are about 13 major earth dams with water canals provided for irrigation purposes. This helped in encouraging farmers to embrace farming and scale up food production in the state. Since then, Kano is holding signposts of progress in agricultural sector with production of rice, millet, wheat, cowpea in commercial quantity for both local consumption and export.
All our canals and dams, some of the dams are going to be part of those that we are going to rehabilitate, and we are going to create more canals. We are going to provide more areas for the dry season agriculture.
In view of this success story, the present administration rolled out policies geared towards reinvigorating agriculture through various incentives to encourage farmers to enhance the nation's food security and the sector to contribute significantly to gross domestic product.
What they are doing with CBN, that is the intervention by CBN, this Anchor Borrowers one, is helping. But the issue is there are certain major project that government must do, because it's just like if you want to diversify the economy, then you have to provide basic infrastructure.
You see that a lot of people, with the banning of the importation of rice, with the closing of the border, you see that a lot of people have gone back to the farm.
Despite the subsistence nature of farming in the state, the thinking among farmers is that of breaking oil monopoly and make agriculture economic hub of the country. Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
A development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengwu, joins us tonight on Weekend File to talk more on Nigeria 60 moving away from a mono economy. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Nigerians.
Well, it's been there all along. We've been clamoring for diversification of our economy. But then the oil has always been there, and we know what it has been able to attract to Nigeria in terms of income. Now, how do you look at the scenario?
Well, I think we need to put this properly. You know, it might not be very correct to say that we're a mono economy, but it might maybe make more sense to say that we have a major sector that seems to be, getting all this whole revenue for us, about 97% of our revenue or 87% of our revenue. So the oil sector is actually a revenue sector, and then employs less than 3%, of the workforce, but it now employs 3% of what you might be able to call your high-end workforce. Okay, as against agriculture that is now employing maybe about over 60% of your workforce, and then employs the low end of your workforce. So if you're talking about diversification, I think we're properly diversified. I think what we should be focusing on is what can we be able to do to probably now also get agriculture that is now employing this high volume, okay, of citizenry to also now begin to, contribute to the revenue stream of the country. That's what the challenge is. And I can tell you why it's that way.
Why?
Because we've treated agriculture as a proper thing. Way back when agriculture was contributing, a lot to the revenue of this country, we were not doing proper farming. We were not talking about farmers. We were talking about plantations. Okay, in every intro you've shown here, you're talking about supporting farmers to go back to the farms. And, people are not even learning about plantations these days. They're talking about belts. And you're talking about mechanization. In a country where you have 86 million hectares of land, okay, and then 80% of those who are farming on less than maybe 10% of those 86 hectares of land on a pedestrian, on a subsistent level. Then why are you talking about us not, we must be able to treat agriculture. And in treating agriculture, please, I keep making this argument each time I have the opportunity to. Okay, agriculture is what it is. The study of plants and animals. That's what agriculture is. And the Ministry of Agriculture is supposed to be regulator administrator. Okay? Now, what you're supposed to be looking at is now, if you have the Ministry of Agriculture being regulator and administrator, where is the NMPC of the agricultural sector that can be able to now start ramping up that funding you need, the JVAs you need, the shiploads you need, the marketing boards you need, okay, the commodity boards you need to begin to now ramp up what you'll now be able to now call that volume that unlocks your value. I think that should be the challenge our country should be facing. And then it's important that we segregate agriculture, because each time you also see intros on agriculture, what you see are people producing food crops. Remember that at one time, a federal minister had actually started pushing for us to go all the way to Brazil to go and import what? Grass, forage for animals. It's a major income stream, for agriculture. Remember that these days we are looking for all manners of medicinal plants. Government is setting up, I think the Ministry of Science and Technology had actually set up a technical, committee to look at the use of our medicinal plants, for the production of protocols, okay, for us to begin to now, use in treating ailments here. Now, if you're going to, and I say this, Niprid had actually now produced a medication for the reversal of a diabetes, and it came out of 2 available local crops, scent leaf and bitter leaf. But for you to be able to now commercialize it, you'll be needing plantations or belts of these 2 products. And then you can now begin to talk about the volume. So it is not about saying that we have a mono economy. We don't have a mono economy. We have the film industry. It's part of one of the sectors, and it's doing well. But it is what are they contributing to the national economy as against what oil is contributing.
All right. If we actually understand you well, there are other areas where we are already, driving and making income as a nation. But we also need, I'm trying to understand you, come down to the very level where where a normal Nigerian will want to, really grab the matter. That it's not about the absence of these things, but it's about how we manage them.
It is about what you're doing to be able to, increase the volume that you're getting. Agriculture that everybody keeps shouting is a proper thing. Anytime you want, you're just showing it now. When America is showing that 4% of its population is producing what the remaining, the 94% or 93% is consuming, inclusive of the world, they are not showing people holding sickles and farms and hoes. They are showing industrial machines. They are showing large scale, you're seeing a belt, you're seeing a farm traveling over 10 kilometers, 30 kilometers. You're seeing helicopters, you're seeing airplanes, spraying these farms. So if you want to get to that level where your agriculture begins to contribute, you are not going to be doing it with sickle and hoe and knife and baskets. That's not agriculture. That's the point I'm trying to make. Or that is not food production. That is subsistence living. These are people who are doing it at a proper level. So if we want to diversify, government necessarily just needs to put the policies in place, okay, and then make certain that there's a national policy, a national program to say, if we have 86 million hectares of land and we are committing 10, 20 hectares to rice plantation or to rice planting, we are committing 20 hectares to corn planting, we are committing 30 hectares to beans, and all that, and all that, and all that. You will now start looking at your volume. And again, let me tell you what happens the moment you identify the significance of volume in production. You now can now actually use your volume to begin to produce your allied or develop your allied infrastructure. Okay? Now, I'll tell you what I mean. If you had a contract to be able to supply or produce 1 million metric tons of rice or beans or whatever you were exporting, okay, and you were going to be needing $10 million or $20 million to be able to build the infrastructure, the transport infrastructure, you can actually, against that volume, that assured volume, go to a financial institution to say, listen, I can assure you that out of 30, 40, 50 plantations I have, I am going to be moving X amount of timber that is going to this, look at my contract, and this is going to be for 30 years. Now, out of this contract, let me now borrow against my contract and then discount as a supply, to my end users. This is how, infrastructure is developed on what they call project-based finance models.
All right. We are still here. We're talking about Nigeria at 60, moving away from mono economy. We'll take a break now. Our conversation continues in just a while.
Son, being good at something requires strength. It requires putting in more. That's why the new improved Bonvita is packed with vitality and a richer, creamier taste.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring great personalities from all walks of life. Expository interview with a young TV presenter who shows passion on what she does, Morayo Afolabi Brown of TVC. Pick a copy of this compendium of mind-blowing stories and get abreast with issues as regards media convergence, leadership, health, star profiles, star programs, fashion, sports, human angle stories, and lots more. Meet some media professionals within our space who have paid their dues in no small ways. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative, and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
As attention is channeled mainly to revenue from oil, Comfort IM in Enugu reports on opportunities available also in the non-oil sector.
At the time Nigeria attained independence in 1960, agriculture was the economic mainstay, with cocoa production export taking the lead as a veritable alternative revenue sources to the dwindling GNP. However, the discovery of crude oil and the oil boom of the late 1970s provided a temporary respite for Nigeria's political recovery from collapse of the commodity price.
We have forgotten we have zinc in the north, we have gold, we have diamond, we have so many other things in the north. Before the oil revenue, what was happening as a country?
As tough times beckons due to the shocks occasioned by COVID-19 lockdown affecting the global economy, which calls for seeking solution, experts in Enugu maintained that there is need to improve and develop the non-oil sector up to its full potentials.
Cultural sector brings in tourism, and the tourism is another area that can diversify the economy of the country. That's another area where Nigeria can make money apart from oil.
Available statistics, however, indicate that in 2019, agriculture contributed about 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP, 27.38% from industry, and 49.73% from the services sector. In Enugu, Comfort IM, NTA News.
We're still talking with Dr. Emeka Okengu, a development economist. Let's look at the extractive industry, solid minerals across Nigeria? Because in the first segment of our discussion, we actually focused more on agriculture. The other side of it, where those respondents there are also saying that we have a lot to benefit if we do the needful.
The solid mineral sector even presents, lower hanging fruits for us. Okay, I would tell a story maybe the younger Nigerians might not be able to know. One of the major considerations in developing the Port Harcourt seaport was the export of coal. In fact, the only major infrastructure that was built in that port, as at the time it was being developed, was what they call a coal washery. And against that coal, I think the colonial government then took a loan against the in situ deposits or resources of about 3 million metric tons of coal that was found in Enugu, and they took a loan of 300 million pounds to be able to build the railway that was supposed to be taking the coal to and fro from the mines to the ports for export. Now, I mentioned something they call in situ value. Let me tell you what it is. In situ value actually means that based on investigations, based on resource evaluations, you can actually raise money. Now, what does that mean? That if you have 10 million metric tons of a mineral, and let us assume coal, and the 3 billion, not million, sorry, the 3 billion that was found, let's put a value to it so you can understand what is sitting there. Let us assume that a metric ton of that coal is $100. The 3 billion would have given you about $3 trillion, right? Or $300 billion or something like that. Now, what they do with in-situ value is that what you now do is to be able to sell at a cheaper rate. Instead of now selling at the prime rate of $100 if you are getting it to CIF, what you now do is to sell maybe a million or 100 million metric tons in situ value at about $30 or $40. When you are now paid that money in situ, it's still in the ground. You now use it to be able to now develop the infrastructure that you require to be able to pull it out. Now, this is just to tell you how simple it is. Now, you have a country for iron ore against Ajokuta. Ajokuta, the 5 iron ore mines around Ajokuta, I think has a combined tonnage of about 2 to 3 metric tons, billion metric tons of iron ore. Now, Nigeria requires a yearly average of 18 million metric tons of iron and steel and allied products. The capacity of Ajokuta steel at full capacity is supposed to be about 5.6 million metric tons annually. So we still have a shortfall, okay, of about 10 million. Now, what point am I trying to make? Ajokuta presents a very good story for what I'm about to tell you. For you to be able to produce the 1.5 million metric tons, which is where we are in Ajokuta now, you'll be requiring a total of 7.5 million metric tons of materials combined, iron ore, manganese, et al. Okay, coal, cooking coal and all that. Imagine what happens. Let me tell you what would have happened, my brother. The 7.5 million metric tons required by Ajokuta in a year would have been able to develop a minimum of 500 to 600 mines, producing 100,000 annually that was supposed to be going to Ajokuta. Now, imagine that you had 7.5 million metric tons as your load value. Okay, you can actually use it to be able to now negotiate building your rail tracks running from the mines and taking it into Ajokuta. And I'm just not talking about the export potentials it has. But I think the major problem we have in Nigeria is that we depend too much on government to be able to solve the whole problems.
That was why I was trying to ask you about the synergy,
yes,
between the federal,
yes,
the state.
Yes.
Let me not include local government here,
yes,
because these two need to come together,
yes,
and work things out.
It's a very simple document. What you need to do is to be able to look at what you have in your exclusive list and what you have in your concurrent list. The moment you're able to realign, because I think on the exclusive list we have about 58 items, as against maybe 13 or 14 or 16 you have in the concurrent list. Now, what that simply means is that you have a federal government that is burdened with too much, and then you have a state government. Everybody talks about agriculture, remembering that land is actually in the hands of the state government. Now, if you have agricultural and we are doing land agriculture, we are doing rain-fed agriculture, we have not even gotten it to the point of technology-based agriculture.
Yes.
So this synergy you're talking about, it does not have to be political. Okay, it has to be legal. And there's a document that can be able to make it legal, and that is the exclusive list. The moment federal government now realizes, and what am I talking about here? We are 200 people you must feed every day. Okay, and this is where you now talk about your nutritional intakes and nutritional needs for a daily person. Leave cup of gari. Okay, there's this thing I saw on the internet, and I found it so amazing. Somebody was trying to describe gari and granite, and by the time she finished calling all the whole names, she was calling there, it was sounding as if you were in a buffet. This is actually what the white people are doing. Okay, be able to make certain that you have nutritional values that begin to guide what it is you want to. What do you need as a human being nutritionally in a day? And then you begin to now find the inputs that can be able to support that nutritional program. So what am I saying in effect is that if we're going to be thinking Nigeria through, we're not going to be thinking it from the perspective of saying government produce all the whole money. No. Nobody, there is no way in the world government runs an economy.
Does everything.
No, runs an economy. The government can provide security
and enabling environments.
Now, what government owes is make certain that you put into perspective, like what I'm in the agricultural sector, for instance. Now, like I asked you a question, where is the NNPC of agriculture? Where can you go to now? And there is a body. There's what you call the Nigerian Agri-Corp that now is running, the same kind of things. When the colonial masters were here, they do have all the roads we have here. Yet they were taking shiploads of raw materials, what we call valorization, making them seaworthy to be able to take them out. And yet, 30 years and 40 years after that, we have now gone back. We are still giving support implements to our farmer. They say everybody go back to the farm. Okay. Everybody does not have to go back to the farm at that elementary level, but everybody can be involved in the agricultural value chain, which is close to endless.
And then the burden must not be left for government alone.
Well, everybody is government.
Exactly. Dr. Emeka Okemgwu, thanks indeed for coming on Weekend File today.
Pleasure to be here.
Well,
Thank you for
discussing with Dr. Emeka Okemgwu, a development economist. This is Weekend File on the NTA. We will be back shortly. We now join Olumide Guntola on Sports Update.
Football-loving Nigerians have attributed Super Eagles 0-1 loss to Algeria on Friday night to lack of tactics and play pattern, calling for an improved Super Eagles against Tunisia on Tuesday.
We hope that some of these players who did not merit to be in that team should be kept on the bench.
I was a bit disappointed because I didn't really see the pattern we had, but you can cut them some slack. Why? Because this is their first game in almost a year.
For a team that Jeddah has handled for 4 years and still we don't have a football philosophy, it's really a sad or sorry state.
In international tennis, two among the greatest tennis icons, Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic, will clash for the 56th time on Sunday at the 2020 French Open final. Rafael targets a record extended 13th French Open title and a 20th Grand Slam title to match Roger Federer's record, while Novak Djokovic seeks his second career French Open title and 18th career Grand Slam title. Djokovic leads the head-to-head history with 29 to 26 wins across all tournaments. And from Ibadan, Ayomiku Ajibola reports that all is now set for the World Boxing Federation International Super Featherweight title fight between Nigeria's real one Scorpion Oyekola and Jose Ramos of Spain, scheduled for the 27th of December 2020 in Ibadan.
We have approved the fight, provided the technicalities, and we are ready.
Dr. Rafiu Ladipo also urged both the Oyo State and federal government to support the fight fully. With Sports Update, Olumide Guntola, NTA News.
A quick check on the weather prospect for Sunday is next.
Morning appears to be fine across the country, although some thunderstorms activities are expected over parts of Adamawa and Bauchi State. To the southern cities, Obudu, Ikom, Cross River and Akwa Ibom axis should see some thunderstorms as well, while most parts of the country will be in cloudy atmosphere. Moving into the afternoon and evening hours, there are high chances of isolated thunderstorms across the northern half of the country, the high ground areas of the central cities down to the southern half of the country should see their fair share of activities as well. Now let's see how these weather activities would affect the maximum and minimum temperature. Thanks for watching.
And that's Weekend File on the NTA this weekend. Thanks indeed for watching. My name is Kenan Ima Abodikem. Join us again next weekend. Bye-bye.
Demonstration and expression of its commitment to societal upliftment, the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, is determined to be in the forefront of the war against rape and rapists. The formal launch of the organization as the vanguard of the cleanup campaign is scheduled to hold on Thursday, 15th October 2020 by 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the NTA Arena, Area 11 Gariki, Abuja, with the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, as the chief host. Be a star. Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists.
NTA News. When the news breaks, we mend it and present it without blemish. NTA News, authentic and authoritative.
The sunflower, Helianthus annus, is an annual plant in the family Asteraceae with a large head, capitulum. The stem of the flower can grow up to 3 meters tall, with a flower head that can be 30 centimeters wide. The flower head is actually an inflorescence made of hundreds or thousands of tiny flowers called florets. The central florets look like the center of a normal flower and the outer florets look like yellow petals. Altogether, they make up a false flower or pseudanthium. The benefit to the plant is that it is easily seen by the insects and birds, which pollinate it, and it produces thousands of seeds. The sunflower is the state flower of Kansas. That is why Kansas is sometimes called Sunflower State.
Sunflower is another beautiful plant